So welcome to the show, Callum Kerr, good friend of mine from London and TV actor on Channel 4's Hollyoaks. Mate, it's been a long time.
It's been a while, mate. You've been up to a lot. You've been running, swimming, cycling all over the place. What's going on?
You know what? That event was probably the hardest thing I've ever done. Just for full disclosure for everyone listening, I've just completed my first full Ironman. But because of COVID and the current state of the world, me and a couple of lads did it off our own backs just around London. And to say it was mentally challenging is an understatement. To say it was physically challenging is also an understatement. But yeah, it's definitely shaped my opinion on long distance endurance sports for the rest of my life. That's for sure.
And what is that opinion, that you should never do it again, or that you're gonna crack on and do more?
So yeah, I'm probably gonna do more. That's the thing, It's like knowing what's on the other side of the fence, and then you can always just peek over and be like, oh yeah, I know what's there. It's actually, I was looking back on the race or the day, and I looked at it and I went, you know what? The hardest thing about it was actually anticipation of not knowing what was coming, like what I would feel like after swimming, 2.4 miles and then cycling 112 miles and then running a marathon. Like I had no idea what my body was going to go through. So the fact that I kind of did it, and you don't think about it when you're doing it. You just think about the next lamppost you got to get to, or like the next corner you got to go around. You don't think about the bigger picture. And then when you finish and you look at your watch and you've been going for 14 hours on your feet, you're like, wow, that was actually quite a big achievement. And but yet I'm still, my competitive bloody brain is like, I could do it probably a bit quicker. So there you go. I'm going to do another one next year, and hopefully in a proper environment when Ironman can do their events in the real setting. But anyway, enough about that, man. Enough about that. Let's talk about you. How have you been, my friend? It's been, last time I spoke to you, we did an Instagram live, so we've upgraded, so to speak. We can actually do longer than an hour, which is quite nice.
Fantastic.
And you've moved to Liverpool. You're shooting for Hollyoaks. How's everything going?
Really good, man. We got back to work not long after you had me on your Instagram show. So that was great because, lockdown was a nice little bit of time to maybe refocus and work things out. But once that was done, it was a bit like, right, I'm ready to get back into the real world type thing. So we went back to work, and it's obviously they've done all the things to make the place as safe as possible. So that's good. We go in, we get temperature checked, and then we can't be, even though I think the social guidelines legally, especially at the time when we opened up, where I think you had to be 1 meter apart, but on the set they decided to keep it 2 meters apart just to be extra safe. So even those who are vulnerable in the cast were like kind of put at ease that there wouldn't be any health cautions. But with that being said, that adds an extra element to how difficult it is to act. It's already one thing acting in a soap, and what makes it different is that you get a script maybe at 6 p.m. the night before that's different to the one that you received when you received the script initially, and you've only got a certain amount of takes because it's in a soap you've got to get 5 episodes out a week regardless. And not only that, because of the lockdown, all of the soaps in the UK basically had to cut the amount of episodes they were airing per week just to keep up with like maintaining some kind of schedule, or they were going to run out of episodes. So now we're not only trying to make enough episodes to get an episode out every day, because we're only doing 2 or 3 or 4 a week at the moment. We're in a deficit, so we're catching up. We're doing extra to get back to the point where we can do an episode a day. So the work is hard. It's we're smashing out scenes, and we're the writers are doing a mental job of trying to like catch up with where they were beforehand, and then also like write Corona into the script without just talking about it all the time. So there's like little bits here and there, and it's completely different. But like you, I just like working, and I like being busy, and so I'm delighted to be back at work, even if it's a bit different. Fingers crossed though that eventually we will go back to some kind of normality, because it's good to hug your cast mates after a good scene, and it's good to high five, and it's good to, when you're in a scene, get right up in someone's face if you need to, and right now we can't. So it's a different challenge, but it's work, and I'm obviously delighted to just be doing something.
It's let me just to clarify, you are a policeman on the set, right?
Yeah.
So that must be quite difficult when you're trying to arrest someone from 2 meters away.
Yeah.
Have you attempted that yet?
Couple times. There's a lot of like crash cut too, so it's like you're under arrest, and then like the scene will flick and it'll be them behind bars like, I haven't done anything wrong. So we're just completely skipping out the part where you put the handcuffs on and lead them in the car. And the first time I did it, I had to read all their rights to them, and your rights, like you don't have to say anything, but anything that you say can blah blah blah. Usually, you'll do that as you're putting the cuffs on them and getting them in the car. So you've got something to do while you're doing the dialogue. But it was one of my first days back, maybe the first day back. And I just had to stand and say it at them. And they were just like, I couldn't go up and arrest them while I was saying it. So I think they've cottoned on to the fact that looks a bit silly. And they've now just got it. So I'll say like the first couple of lines and it'll cut to them either in the back of the car with the door closing or like in the jail cell. So they're learning as well how to get around this whole Corona thing, and so
it's good. Look, it's what the first thing I wanted to sort of ask you about, which is I suppose to address a bit of an elephant in the room, is that currently as it stands in the UK, the government and the kind of the coronavirus pandemic isn't necessarily looking after the arts the way they should be. Right now, you being in the arts, you've been acting for a long time. I've known you for a couple of years, and you've always been involved in that industry. What is your opinion on, first of all, the way in which it's being handled, and second of all, the future of the arts if it continues the way it is?
Yeah, good question. I think first of all, every industry is being challenged just now, and every industry is going to be hit hard. The arts, as an individual in the arts, you're always basically expecting life to be hard at certain times. Even when the world is going great, you're always expecting it to be hard, because you're only signing on for things for maximum maybe a year at a time. That regardless if you're a director or a makeup artist or an actor or a singer, you do one album, it might do really well, but there's absolutely no guarantee of anything financially or otherwise afterwards. So we're a resilient bunch, and we work hard, and we know that there's a sacrifice, and we know that there's risk. But when something like this lockdown happens and people are locked in their homes, and you see the importance of entertainment during those times. So whether it's like a workout class on YouTube, or a new Netflix show like The Tiger King that everyone watched, or I don't know, a new season of Breaking Bad or House of Cards or whatever it is, all those things took so many people a lot of hard work to make. And if that's what's getting us through this lockdown, I would view that as a pretty important part of life. I think if it wasn't for TV and digital, we'd still be on the streets doing theatre. I think that people want to be entertained, and life without art is just numbers, and it's boring as fuck, and there's way less enjoyment. So I think when you're in a country where the government, whether even if it was before lockdown, has said things like, this ballerina doesn't know that her next job is going to be in cyber, or her next job is going to be in IT, you're kind of like, as the individual ballerina, you can choose to retrain and go for a safer option. But I think like if Black Swan is bringing in 40 million to the economy every year, I think it's quite cheeky of the government to say, oh, you should maybe think about just, coding or something instead. There's already no guarantee, but for like the government that's in power to completely kind of just disregard the arts as like, well, we can do without it. It's just, from them, it's so short-sighted, because if you think about how many people benefit from the arts every day, it would completely change the world. So obviously I'm biased because, you know, I'm in the arts and I'm a performer, and I don't want to see me or my friends go out of business. It's just a bit mad. And I think that, you know, without getting too political, I think that there's certain parties that tend to put the arts kind of on the back burner and only deal with them if they really have to. And I think that the party that's in power just now is doing that in a way. You know, if it was me, I'd be looking at getting productions back on as quickly as possible. Working with production teams to make sure it's safe, and kind of the same way that they did with football, you know, make sure that everyone's in their same bubble and get it back on the road. And now football has gone to, you know, they realize that they can't get crowds in, so now they're doing like subscription packages online, and they're doing pay-per-view for games and stuff like that. It would be the exact same in the arts, and I think it's just like a bit mad that they're not putting more effort into it. I know they've got a big job, but, you know, it's for how many people are benefiting every day. It's mad that they would kind of disregard it like that.
That's it. I mean, I watched a Graham Norton episode the other day, and they showed the crowd, and it was groups of 4 spreads equal distance apart, you know, social distancing and whatever, but yet they still had a live audience. So what's to say that, you know, a show, Les Mis or, you know, Black Swan, whatever, can have, you know, get people come to watch them live. I think that there's an argument to say that I think they could have audience, but it's just that the shows themselves would have to be rewritten because of the contact on stage with those people. And as you said, like with football, you know, if even if they were in their social bubbles, it's almost expecting more of them to then not have to go back to their normal lives in between shows, and, you know, be able to see their family and their friends and go to the gym and do all the other things that you do in between, like you would at a normal job. So yeah, it is a hard one to differentiate, but, you know, the arts are important, and the way it's going to go forward, I think, is just going to be, it's going to be so hard for everyone to get it right. And I think that, you know, one thing that springs to mind, which I know that you are a good and amazing advocate for, is resilience and kind of like reshaping kind of what's going on for you at this time. You know, in the time I've known you, you've always been someone that thinks outside the box and does the thing that's kind of, you know, you're always one step ahead of yourself when it comes to stuff that goes on in life, whether it be a twist and a turn or something that flips upside down. And ironically, the people in the arts are usually the most resilient because they're used to, as you said, having jobs for 6 months at a time and then not knowing where their next job's coming from. So how have you personally been resilient and sort of kept yourself busy, so to speak, in between all the stuff that's been going on over the last 7 to 8 months?
Yeah, I think I was personally, first of all, lucky that I was, because I'm on a contract with Hollyoaks, I was looked after financially. Not, you know, it wasn't anything like mental. I wasn't going out buying a new car or anything like that, but it was enough they looked after us enough to the point where we could have, you know, paid bills and still afforded, you know, a beer at the weekend or whatever. But I think with a lot of people who were, especially the people who were depending on work coming up, I think the resilience comes in just taking a step back and doing a job that you wouldn't usually do. Like, you know, I've got mates that worked in Sainsbury's as drivers delivering to, you know, people, and I had mates that were volunteering for the NHS. And I think a lot of it just comes, you do these things because you have hope for the future, and you've got to be optimistic if you're in a job like this. And when times are bad, you have to go into these things thinking, yeah, I'll go and deliver bread for Sainsbury's, but it's all right, because in a year when everything's back open, I'll be back on the job market and I'll get back into the theatre and stuff. To go back to the last bit, you know, that's when you hear something from the government that's like, oh, you might have to retrain into something IT related. You're like, oh, God, I'm trying to be positive, and you're basically saying there's no hope. So yeah, I don't want to come across, I don't want to make it out like I'm Mr. Resilient this year, because I was very lucky and very fortunate to be financially stable during this whole thing. I think in the past, I've had to be resilient in terms of just getting like knocked back constantly. But that's every actor. And I think if you're not resilient, it would be a very hard career to choose. I think, you know, resilience comes, it you can show it in a lot of ways. And I think the way that I was maybe able to show it during lockdown was just kind of staying positive and you know, trying to continue to exercise and learn new things, or you know, just yeah, not let the doubt start creeping in, because as soon as you do that in one of our jobs, mate, that's it. That's the beginning of the end. And then you start thinking, oh, what am I doing? Like, am I doing the right thing? What if this happens again? And you can't think like that. So I think there's a bit of mental resilience that you have to have as an actor. And I think you know, for the most part, all of my friends have done really well, whether they were the Hollyoaks guys who, you know, were lucky like me, or the guys that have now lost jobs but are just starting podcasts and doing, like, one guy that I know is doing like Zoom question, what do you call them, like pub quizzes and stuff, like, you know, that's how he's earning his money now. And it's like, we make shit work. Yeah. You know, we're creatives and we get creative in times like this. So
yeah, it's good. You know what, it shows that exactly the reasons why you shouldn't retrain. And, you know, on that advert I think you're referring to with the ballerina and saying she said to, there's actually another post I've seen, which is, you know, kind of a zoomed out version, and it says like, the text was done by a typographer and the picture was done by a photographer and the set design was done by this, and, you know, and it's all people in the creative world. So yeah, there's a lot of irony in that photo. As we're speaking, you know, this may go out slightly later than we are speaking today. Unfortunately, I haven't got around to doing live podcast. One day, but Liverpool, where you live, is currently going into a lockdown, and you know, without going too much into it, what is the thing that you're gonna miss the most about going back into lockdown?
Another good question, my friend. The gym, to keep it very short. I mean, I'm not an expert or a scientist or a politician, but it would just seem to me that the gym would be the last thing that I'd close. The fact that, you know, a lot of the casualties of the brutal coronavirus have sadly been people who have health conditions, heart disease, cancer, diabetes. Some of those things, obviously, you can't help, but some of those things you can help. And one of those ways that you can help is by going to the gym and staying active. And I think that in a place like Liverpool, where we're already kind of there, but we're coming into a winter that's going to be filled with rain, sleet, snow, dark nights. The gym is often the respite for people to be able to work out in a safe environment. And I think I would actually go as far to say that this ban on gyms opening is I don't think they've meant to do this, but it's accidentally sexist. And I think that to just say that, oh, you can just go on a run when people are now working from home, it's like, there's going to be, you know, I live with my girlfriend, my partner, and you know, there's often times that she'll go out on a run during the day and she'll come back and be a little bit pissed off because people are beeping their horns, people are following her when she's running, and the world is not always a safe place, especially for women. And oftentimes, if you're working till 7 p.m., you don't want to go out and run in the dark on your own down alleyways and streets, especially when everyone else is inside it. It's not as safe. And the gyms are safe, sanitary places where women can go and work out, and guys as well. But I think that the safety aspect for women is really detrimental. And I also think that that the gyms have been, bro, you're the same. We've been going to the gym since probably we were 13 years old. And ever since I've gone to the gym, there's been a bottle of spray and blue paper where you wipe down after you finished exercising. We've been sanitizing since before we had diseases, bro. We've been doing this shit forever. And if you look at the cases, I don't know what to believe. Again, I'm not an expert, but if you look at the cases, they're not coming from gyms being open. David Lloyd, where I train, has fitness classes where there's a 2 meter radius bubble and everyone stands in the middle of their own bubble. So they're constantly 2 meters away from people. Everyone's wiping down their machines. The machines they're only using half the machines, and they're, you know, the one in the middle will be out of order, and everyone's staying 2 machines apart. People on the weights benches they're going on one at a time, and then they're finishing, and then they'll wipe it down and the next person goes on. To me, it makes no sense. And it's just, to be honest, I don't know why we're listening to people who don't work out, and why they're suddenly experts on health and fitness, especially when it seems that the healthier you are, the more chance you have of not being hospitalized against the coronavirus. I think it helps them out short term and long term. I think it helps the country out to motivate people to go and work out. And I think it helps out women to have a safe place to train, especially if they're working until it's dark. So to me, it's an absolute no-brainer to not close the gyms down. And as you can tell, I'm a bit passionate about it. I'm biased. Of course, I'm biased because I love working out. And just to add one more thing, from my personal experience of working out, mentally, I'm fortunately someone who hasn't ever suffered with a massive amount of, anxiety or depression. And I can't really imagine what that feels like to someone who suffers badly from it. But I do notice a difference in myself when I can train hard and when I can't. And there is a difference between going out and it's pissing with rain and freezing cold and trying to run, but your hands are cold and your ears are cold, and then coming back and doing some sit-ups on your bloody living room floor, compared to going in, doing a 45-minute HIIT class with an expert who guides you and motivates you through it. And then maybe going in and lifting some weights and coming back and feeling good about yourself, and you've achieved something, and you've lifted something that's heavier than your own body off your body, and you've done it several times and you've got your personal best. And to be honest, it's not just physical health. I think mental health, having the gyms open, it'll have a horrible effect on people, that especially people who suffer, who depend on working out every day. So,
and that's it. There's a lot of chat about this, the mental health side of this virus, that not a lot of people have actually kind of considered. There's been obviously national lockdowns, there's been, industries closing, there's been people that have lost their jobs, on an individual level. Like, we don't know actually what the damage that has been done is. And I think that, it's hard, because on social media, you get two types of kind of news, I suppose. You get people that are saying, this coronavirus is awful, and it's killing people and it's ruining lives and all the rest of it, which it is. And then on the flip side, you get people that are embracing it and saying, this is a time for change. It's time to renew yourself. It's time to reboot, rethink, whatever, retrain, whatever the words are. And it's so hard for somebody to look at that being kind of in the middle or on the fence and not knowing kind of what to do with themselves. Do they wait for their job to open back up or go back off furlough? Or do they decide to actually pack it in and start learning something else online and doing a course that could get them to another position? But with the unknown, that's the hardest bit. And I think, as you just said, like, that anxiety and the stress and the depression around it is just something that it's not going to just go away when the virus goes away. Yes, we'll find a vaccine for this virus at some point. I'm sure we have done in the past, and we are on it. And if anything, we are more medically advanced now to solve this than ever a time in history. But we can't solve the issues of mental health. It's not just a medicine you can take. It's something that's going to be an ongoing battle. Just like the economy is going to take probably 5 years to recover from what's happening and all the rest of it. So, I feel as strongly as you do about the simple, easy ways in which you can keep people in their mental health, mental state. And one of them is, exercise and gym. It's been proven. And I know, again, I'm not a scientist or a nutritionist or anything like that, but I know what I feel like when I've been, even just for a walk. Mm-hmm. You feel better about everything. You think clearly. Your blood's pumping. You feel like you've done something, and it's scientifically proven that you feel much better after doing some exercise. So the fact they're closing, those things and keeping restaurants and pubs open, and I kind of understand why.
McDonald's open, KFC, McDonald's.
And I understand that it's to do with the economy and people's lives and people's jobs and stuff, but it is, there is that fine balance, isn't it? It's like, when is it going to give that the economy is actually fine and people's livelihoods and people's mental health are going to suffer?
Totally. And I think that, like you said, going on a walk makes you feel good, and you're totally right. But walking every day wouldn't relieve like the energy and the stress that I build up just from living like quite a mental life. Like I'm always on the move, and I need to blow out. I need to be. It's like the way that I would describe it. If I was talking to Boris Johnson right now, I'd say, look, your mental capacity means that you can try, or at least attempt to run this country, and you, whether people agree with you or not, you're attempting it. And most people wouldn't even attempt that. Most people would hate to be a politician. But if you're used to that, and I was to put you on a 16-hour contract in JD Sports as someone on the sales floor, you wouldn't be mentally as engaged as you are, which you need to be prime minister. So you're obviously like a high functioning person, and you need constant mental challenges in order for you to function. And that's how I feel about my fitness. I've got a lot of energy, I've got a lot of aggression, I've got a lot of testosterone, and I need an outlet to blast that out in order to be a better person and to be able to concentrate properly on my other parts of life. I'm not someone that can just do 15 sit-ups, 20 press-ups, and then go on a walk. Like, it's good for you, and it's something that I'm probably going to have to do now that the gyms are closed. But I need not confrontation. I need a challenge, and I need to go up against it. I need competition, and I need to feel sick at the end of it in order to feel better later. I mean, I'm not Iron Man level, but I assume you get the same out of doing those like big long distance challenges as I do about, jiu-jitsu. You're wrestling against someone and you're trying to basically end each other's lives until the other one taps. That's mental, but I need that challenge. And every time I get better, I feel better as a person, and I feel safer in myself. And I just don't understand how that can't be a priority.
Look, it's a subject we could probably talk about for God knows hours and hours and hours, and it highlights, kind of what is a reality, but also, what also we need to address. And I think that you're a perfect person to speak to about this, because I think that you also have a mindset of, right, this is how it is. Let's pivot. Let's move it. Let's move forward rather than backwards, and look at what we can do moving forward. So, just want to take it a step back and ask you, back in the day when you started your career, your acting career, you started off doing your thing. You knew what you're in for. You knew what the life was going to be like. It was casting after audition that doesn't get hit. You just in a world of knockbacks all the time. How do you feel now, being experienced and having years upon you and being in a position where you are now, but also having still those knockbacks that are almost a bit out of your control? How do you stay with the resilience, and how do you stay with the drive that you clearly have to do what you need to do, but in these times where you have zero control over it?
I would say I'd go to the gym and have a blowout. I mean, I think one thing that I've learned, I think that would be very helpful for anyone starting out in a career, is that you're allowed to feel shit about it. Like, I think at the beginning, I would go for like a commercial audition. You're not trusted yet with a TV show, so you go for commercials first, and you start to meet the casting directors, and then these people start to trust you once you book a couple. I'd go for these commercial auditions, and I'd go in and someone would say, stand on the mark. And I'd go, oh, no problem. Stand on the mark. How you doing? I'm Callum. They go, name and height. You go, I'm Callum, but I'm from Edinburgh, blah, blah, blah. And they go, all right, so see that box in the corner? We want you to lift that box up, take it over to the other chair and put it down over there. Yeah, you ready? Yeah. Okay, cool. And then you do it, and then you put it down, and they go, all right, thanks for coming. And you go, is that it? And then you leave. And bro, I would leave, and I'd just be, I mean, everyone you still get this. I still get it today to a certain extent, but I'll start going, shit, I wonder if they liked me. I wonder if I did it right. I wonder, why didn't I ask to do it again? Maybe I could have lifted the box differently. Should I? And you have all these thoughts of like doubt that just plague your mind. And I think when I was starting out, I would say, no, you're not supposed to think like this. And I'd block them out, and I'd do something else to like completely forget. And I'd keep it in, but like crush it down, as opposed to going home and going, fuck, this is the worst feeling ever. I wish it wasn't, I wish I didn't have to do this, but it's part of this fucking bullshit industry that I love. So fuck. And then I can laugh about it and I can be like, oh my God, what about the way I lifted that box? That was ridiculous. And then, so once I could understand that it was okay to like have, and realize that all the actors in the world have those feelings of doubt, then I chose to start thinking, instead of going into a room and hoping that they like me, I completely took out the do they like me or not. It was like, I like myself. And as long as I've prepared for this audition, I'm going to show them what I think they should go for. And if they don't like it, that's on them, because I know it's fucking good. I've put in the work, I've put in the effort. So like now when I prepare, even if it's just for a commercial, I prepare as if it's like a James Cameron film lead role. And I go in and I'm like, I've already taped myself doing this at home. I know this is lit. So if you guys don't like it, cool. It wasn't meant to be. And then I walk out and then I'm like, it doesn't matter, because I didn't have to do anything on the spot. I was so prepared and I was so relaxed, and I know myself, it's good. So I think like there's an actor that said, who was it? I'll remember in a minute, but he basically said he started booking roles when, instead of thinking of it as an audition, it was just a chance to act in front of other people and have fun. And I think my way of doing things was almost that, but it was like, I'm going to be so well prepared and be so confident that I would hire me, that if they don't want to hire me, that's on them. And like in my head, I go, they probably made the wrong decision, but it's okay. People make mistakes. And instead of being like, I hope they like me, I hope I'm good enough. It's like, I'm good enough. I'll show them what I've got. I'll give them my best. If they don't want it, it's cool. And I think that's how I've kind of changed. And since I changed that kind of way of thinking is when I started booking jobs. So it worked for me. And I think for any new actors who are nervous or that, just go in with like confidence, and it's okay. It's okay if they don't like you. Fuck them. You'll get more opportunities. We'll move on.
Confidence. It's a funny one, because I think, you and I both have been in the industry and have got what I think is kind of confidence to be able to just switch it on, be able to go and have, having the worst day, for example, and then walk into a studio and stand on that mark and deliver, a really good audition for whatever it is you're going for. But that has taken time, has taken practice. Yeah. It has taken a lot of knockbacks that have almost thought to yourself, well, it doesn't matter if I don't do this, because, whatever happens will happen. So when was the switch for you? When was the moment where you were like, fuck it, I'm just going to start doing what I want and start doing it my way. And if they don't like it, it's their problem, not yours.
Actually, I haven't thought about this before, but it was when I started doing things outside of acting that were challenging, to the point that when I was finished with an audition, I wasn't thinking about it for the rest of the day. So to give a quick bit of background, I used to always work in bars when I was acting. So I was like, the shifts are in the evening. I can, if I need to quit a bar job for a part, I can always get another bar job when I finish that part. It's not like I'm going to be like pissing anyone off. And then I started a couple of little like side businesses. And as soon as I did that, it was like, as soon as I was out the audition, I didn't have time to think about the audition. I was back to thinking about my little side hustles, which I was now doing full time. And I was like, if acting doesn't work out, I'd be more than happy just doing, little business things. And I realized that like as soon as you don't need something, you lose your sense of desperation. And then people take you more serious because they think that it gives you a fake level of confidence. If you say, if I go in for, I don't know, Stranger Things season 5 or whatever they're on now, and I go in and I'm just like, oh my God, I'm the biggest fan of Stranger Things, and I'm trembling holding the bit of paper. Even if I just say, oh, I'm a bit nervous, it immediately like subconsciously puts these guys into a state of like, well, this would change their life and they might not be ready for it yet. Whereas if you go in and you've already got a podcast on the side, or Hollyoaks, or you're doing music, or even like you're invested in, I don't know, a couple of properties. So you like, if I don't get it, I'm still gonna have a home and I own it. I'm renting out the spare room or whatever it is. If you go in and say this would be awesome, but we'll see. So I think to put all that together, I think just having like a little something on the side that you're passionate about and you're working on that isn't acting will give you that level of it will take away the desperation in an audition.
I'm trying to figure out what is it that stops you from becoming that nervous, trembling wreck. And as you said, it might be the side thing you've got going on or the other focus, but actually what goes through your mind when you think, I don't care necessarily if I get this or not, I'm going to just do my best in this situation and do the thing that I know I can do well, whether they like it or not is besides the point, to then doing that thing and then coming out of it and almost not worrying about whether you get it or not. It's almost like because if on the flip side, if you looked at it and you were so stressed out with it and wanted to get it so badly, you'd think about it more. So then when you do get the news as to whether you get it or not, it's that much more heightened, isn't it? Whereas if you haven't got the thing to concentrate on, or you have got the thing to concentrate on, either side business or whatever, then it makes it much more, I suppose, it's less important. It's almost like you've got something to fall back on. So I suppose, what do people do? What do people do that are in a position where they're like, I'm pursuing this career, but it's not going anywhere? Like how do you find out what other stuff you could be doing?
Well, I think, good question. Do you mind if I come back to that in a second? You might have to remind me what the question is, but I think with what I was saying before, with eventually becoming calm and chill in an audition and not coming across as desperate, you're not going to get that right first time. You just have to be aware that you have to keep working on it, and it's practice. You just have to. When I do jiu-jitsu, we do this thing called shark tanking, which is like you're the one on your back. You're the one on your back, and people are one by one for a minute at a time. A fresh new competitor will come in and try and either choke you out or make you submit or whatever, and you just have to survive. And that's a scary thought, especially when you start getting out of breath, and then the next guy who's completely fresh comes in, and you've just survived dealing with one guy, and the next guy comes in. And the more times you climb in that shark tank, the more comfortable you start to feel. And then you get to a point where you realize that you can survive. And then you get to a point where you're like, this is fun. And it's the exact same with auditioning. You just have to keep doing it. And every time you fail, you have to go, well, I got through it and I'm still alive and I'm still ready for the next one. So the next one, I'm going to be a little bit more calm. I'm just going to, let them do most of the talking and just go in. You just, every time you do it, you think, yeah, that was actually, it wasn't as bad as I thought. And next time, I'm not going to go in and try and high five everyone in the room before I start. that looked a bit desperate. And bro, I've done all that before. I've gone in, I've gone in for the hug when they clearly only wanted a handshake, and I come out and I'm like, why did I fucking try and hug the guy? Like, I'm like, what am I doing? And I'm just like, the more you do it, the more comfortable you get. So just keep climbing in that shark tank. Keep at it. Just
I like
keep
that.
Practicing.
I like the shark tank analogy. It's actually right. Like there's something that I talk to a lot of my clients about, which is, failing isn't a bad thing at all. If anything, the word fail is an acronym for first attempt in learning, right? If you don't know if you don't know the outcome of what you're about to do, then it's a learning experience, right? You are going to learn about what's going to happen, whether you do it right or wrong. I think Henry Ford was famous for that quote, whether you do it or you don't do it, the outcome is still going to be the same. I probably butchered that quote, but it's something along those lines. It's so true that, the more you do something, the better you get at it, and the more confident you become. The difference is, though, when you start becoming so confident doing all these different things, but it's going nowhere, and it's sort of like, when do you finally sort of think like, this is maybe not what I want to pursue. Maybe this isn't something that I'm maybe got good at, whatever it might be. How do you do what I've done, probably lots of other people have done who's listening here, has started little businesses or started little side projects or passion projects that have maybe grown into something else. How do you get those into your life?
I think the first thing that I would say, one of my least favorite quotes, just because it's misused, is like, you don't need a plan B because you should only be going for plan A. It's like, that is so single-minded. Everyone that I know that's successful has several things going on at the same time. They're working on their plan A, B, C, D, and E, and they're all doing well. It's not like, oh, if I train as a teacher, now I'll never be an actor. It's like, go, if you love acting and you love kids, go fucking teach kids on the weekends and make some money, and still be open to taking roles and quitting that if you need to. So I think, like, I'd say first point is that I personally think that if you don't think that you can make it, don't bother. You have to think that you go. As soon as you lose that thing that you're like, I might not actually, that's it. You have to either find that again fast, or like, don't bother, because you're up against such harsh, brutal, critical competition that if you don't even believe that you can make it, then it's probably not going to happen. So as long as you still have that thing that, like, I am absolutely 100% going to make it happen, whether it's today or if it's in 56 years, you'll keep working on it and you'll keep getting better. And then in the meantime, if you're open to the idea that it might take 56 years, think, well, what else could I do in those 56 years? Oh, I might run a marathon every year, and I'm maybe going to start like a little photography business, or a little, or I'll learn how to do yoga and teach yoga at the weekends. And then as soon as that big job comes up in 56 years, I'll be super flexible, and I'll teach people on set to do yoga.
But that's it. Like, I mean, there's a guy who I follow called Benjamin Hardy, and he talks about kind of the future self, right? And how, in order to become something in the future, you have to plan it, you have to look at it, you have to believe it. It's like, you don't plan a holiday for next year and rock up at the airport and think, all right, where are we going? What hotel are we staying in? Like, what flight right. You've planned it. You know where you're going because you've pre-planned it. You've put the things in place to make it happen. And he told me this. I was listening to a podcast of his, and it was really interesting because he asked a bunch of people, right? Are you the same person that you were 10 years ago? Right now, as you would expect, every single person says, no, I'm not the same person I was 10 years ago. I've done this, I've grown, I've whatever. He then asked the same group of people, are you going to be the same person in 10 years time from now? And what do you think people said?
I don't know. It's almost a trick question. I think they would say, no, I won't be the same person in 10 years time either.
They said yes. They said yes. Most of them thought they were going to be the same person they were today that they're going to be in 10 years time, when they said they weren't going to be, or they're not the same person they were 10 years ago. And what that basically says is, psychologically, people don't think far enough ahead. They think, oh, who I am now is basically the best I'm ever going to be, right? And it's this comes back to this kind of Carol Dweck growth versus fixed mindset kind of stuff, right? Where if I think I'm only as good as what I can be right now, then what's the point in trying to do any better? Because this is the level, this is my ceiling, this is where I'm at, right? Whereas if you've got a growth mindset and you look at, like, right, what could I achieve if I really double down on, let's say, a marathon, right? Like, okay, I've run 5K, but I want to run a marathon. How would I go about doing that? It's not going to happen next week. It's not going to happen next month. It might not even happen next year, but like, let's be realistic about this and put like something in place that's going to make sure that goal is achieved and broken down in a certain way. It's like, I've to just put it on a personal level, I've baffled myself. This time last year, I hadn't even run my first marathon. And yet in a year, I've done 3 marathons, 2 Ironman events, and a lot of other things in between to train for it. And like, my headspace back then was like, shit, I've got a marathon to run. I have no idea what I'm going to get. Like, I've done a half before, but like, that's just a whole nother ball game. You just grow because you set yourself challenges. And, I personally think that unless you're challenging yourself, you are not growing. You're not doing anything in life. There's no point. You are standing still. If you're not challenging yourself and growing and stretching your comfort zone on a daily basis, you are standing still, and coming back to what we were talking about before, it's like, what are the things in life that scare you and that you think, oh, I could do that, but you don't act upon it, that you may look back on in 10 years time and wish you had? Is there anything that you've thought of in the last 5 years that you thought, I could have done that, or I wish I'd done that, but you didn't?
Well, let me think. Sorry, I was just thinking about what you were saying about like standing still is just as good as moving backwards. I think, because one thing that we can't control is time, and that keeps moving forward. So that you either have to keep up with it or get ahead of it, but you can't stay still. And I think that you're right. If you are quite happy with where you are, you might be the perfect person right now, but in 4 years' time, if you've stayed in that place, you're now behind. Like, you've got to keep up. So that's a really cool point, man. I like that a lot. In terms of things that I regret. See, I'm quite lucky because I'm just so stubborn that I'll just do what I want a lot of the time anyway. So I think there's a few times I've regretted not working harder for an audition, or being lazy or whatever. But I think nothing massive. I don't regret anything massive. I think the one thing that I'm doing now is learning music production, and I regret not looking into it way earlier, because I always liked it, but I just always put it off for I'll do it when I've got more money or more time, or when I get a big acting job. And then I eventually just started doing it, and then I was like, I should have done this a long time ago. But I think if there was going to be one regret, it might be that. But
you started now. But that's the important thing. You started now,
yeah.
And you've telling me before you started a course that you're on, and you are doing things to make yourself into a music productor. There's my grammar for you. You're going to be a music producer, a music producer, and an engineer, and all the rest of it. Like, that is something that you've decided, you've chosen that in the future, right? You've looked at it and gone, in the future, sometime I may not want to be, or may not have the ability to, or may not want to be doing acting. So therefore I want something else to be able to concentrate on, which is what you're doing now. And how's your motivation with that?
I mean, I think I'll always act. I think I'll absolutely always be an actor. I think I could take a 20-year break, and if the right role came up, I'd be like, fuck yeah, dude. I think I'm so in love with film and TV and actually being on set, working as an actor, that I don't think I'll ever lose the love for it, or the passion, or the drive. But I think that if you're very successful with acting, you have a lot of free time. And if you're not very successful with acting, you have a lot of free time. So I might as well fill it doing other shit that I like doing. And if I can monetize that, that'd be great for the times that I'm not doing so well. And if I can monetize it, then even if I'm doing well in acting, it's like a little added bonus. And obviously if I do really well, if I continue doing well with acting and nothing comes of music production, then it's just like a cool hobby that I've had throughout, and kind of that's something that I've concentrated on to take my mind off the horrendous pressure that you get, from auditioning and stuff like that. So it keeps things moving, and I think I've got little goals and targets to hit in terms of like my ability and how many how many songs I can create and who I can work with and stuff like that. But I know those will change over time, and I'll keep updating them and stuff. But for now, it's a passion, I think.
People talk about like lucky moments in life, right? You talk about how, he was so lucky to get that job, or so lucky to get this, or whatever it might be. It's actually bullshit. Luck is a load of bullshit. I think you create your own luck, and I think there's a big element of people. Yes, there's arguments to say that you were born to the right family, or you've got right connections, or whatever, but there's still. You still create that luck. And I think personally, luck is just the equation of opportunity meets skill. So if you can acquire skills, right? And I'm talking about anything, whether it be communication skills or learning how to code, right? Mm-hmm. If you have those skills and then you are able to then meet the opportunity, that, in my opinion, is luck. That's what luck creates, because that creates something out of nothing. It's someone that goes, hey, Callum, I'm producing a film and I'd really like to be in it. And I'm actually really struggling to, get someone to do the opening music. You're like, I'm actually a producer as well.
Yeah.
And there you totally go. Like luck has struck. If you hadn't have learned that skill, you would not only kick yourself because you knew that you wanted to do it 5 years ago and you think to yourself, fuck, I wish I'd done that. But also, you know, it will make up for the fact that you're not doing it now for the sake of making money. You're doing it now for a passion project, and it will all come into fruition at one point. I think that's where a lot of people trip up in life, is that they start something with all the passion in the world and then just don't see it through to the end. They don't actually see it through the hardest times. And sometimes the hardest times, it's when nothing's happening, and when there's no auditions or there's no work or there's nothing, and they give up because it's hard. But like, wake up call, life is hard, you know, and you have to just like bear those things and crack on, because the time will come.
Yeah. And I think sometimes hard times are good because it makes you realize if you actually want to do it. Because anyone can be good at things in the easy times when the money's rolling in. But if times get tough and you still want to do it, then it's for you. And sometimes it's a good lesson to be like, times are tough. I don't want to deal with that shit. So I went and did something else. And that's good because you've learned that that's the case. But I think what you're saying about luck is so true. Like, you know, I'm sure a lot of the people listening to this will know you personally. But if not, like they should know that, you know, we've worked together quite a lot of times, and we were both kind of models in London for a while, and doing that whole like casting game, and the amount of people that I met who were like, oh yeah, I was just picked up on the street. Yeah, it was pure luck. I'm like, fuck off. You were not just walking down the street like, and someone came up to you on the train like, I'm a talent agent, I think you'd be a great look for Calvin Klein. And then like next week you were working in Hollyoaks. You know, it's like, I think a lot of times when you hear people saying that they were lucky, or that they were like, you know, that this thing happened to them, it is bullshit. And you'll probably find that they, you know, got in contact with some agencies and had some pictures done before, but like pretended it. Oh my God, no way. You think I could model? And I'm just like, yeah, okay, whatever you say. So yeah, I think you're right. I think there's a good quote that I'm going to butcher because I don't know who said it and I can't remember what it is, but it goes along the lines of like, I find that the harder I try and push towards a goal, the luckier I become. And I think that's probably what happened in most of these like model cases. Like they went to an open casting and they said that it was on the street, or it sounds better for their story if they were like scouted on the street, or I don't know, even like people who play the lottery, that's very fucking lucky, but you still had to go out and buy the ticket and from the right shop at the right time. You had to prepare to try and win before you could win. So I think you're right. You gotta have your skin in the game to even have a chance of being lucky in the first place.
And that's it. Like I love working with people who have all the enthusiasm in the world to want to make a change, but are just lacking one little thing that's basically the roadblock to getting them to where they want to be. And a lot of the time, being successful is just about showing up. Like 80%, I reckon, of being successful is about showing up in the right way, to the right, you know, in the right manner, so that people can see you for what you are. The rest of it is just good marketing, good sales, being able to talk. You know, if you're somebody who is listening to this and for example, you've got an idea, you've got a business idea, you've got a passion project, you're doing something, let's say, I don't know, you want to start a podcast, right? But yet you don't know how to start, and you don't know where to start, and don't know who to start with. I would say just start showing up as if you are already a podcast host, right? Record yourself. Like every single phone on this planet has a recording device on it. Just record yourself talking to yourself. Talk to your dog, talk to your cat, talk to your mum, whoever. Just talk to somebody and record it and listen back and make notes and work out what you said was good, what you said was bad. Listen for the idiosyncrasies. And even those, I think personally, from listening to multiple podcasts over the last 10 years, is that podcasts actually are more fun when they're more real. You know, I get really frustrated with the podcasts that are kind of like, what's the word? I don't want to say Americanized, but the ones that like have an advert every 5 minutes and are very sort of like structured in the way that they're, you know, they're done. I prefer it when someone makes a mistake, or when someone swears when they shouldn't, or whatever it might be, because it makes it more endearing. It makes it want something to look forward to listening to. So I think, you know, when it comes to showing up, I think if you're somebody who's looking to do something with yourself or the world, first of all, you got to you got to start believing that you are that person before it becomes,
Yeah.
you know, a reality. Because otherwise it's never going to become there, because your mindset's not going to be in the right place.
Yeah, that's so true. I think what you said about like showing up, just pretend, and then if you come across a roadblock, figure it out. If you come across the roadblock of I don't actually know how to get this online, work it out.
Yeah.
Just ask someone, fucking Google it. I don't know, just make it happen, and now you know that. So now that's that checked off. Now you can do that every time, and just keep going. It's like the term "fake it till you make it" is like true until you make it, and then you realize that you weren't faking it because you've done it.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? It's like you thought you were faking it, but it was you the whole time, so it wasn't fake. You were doing it. You know, unless you're lying and you're saying I've been doing podcasting for 20 years and you just started that day. Obviously, that's you're faking it to yourself. But if you say, right, I'm gonna do a podcast as if I am Joe Rogan, and you start doing 4 a week, and you get your big American flag behind you, and then you start bringing on guests, and you're speaking like Rogan, and you're watching them back, and you're going, right, I could have done better here. The lighting's off. It's gonna work out eventually, you know, and you are doing it, so it's not fake. Yeah, I think you're so right. I think I've not got really much to say about that. Just show up and act as if it's your fucking job.
Absolutely.
The one little cool thing that I'll add to the end of that is, talking of Rogan, obviously so many dudes watch him worldwide. He's got a cool analogy about how to motivate yourself. And it's, imagine you've got a documentary crew following you around, documenting your success. So it's like, eventually when the DVD comes out, when you're a mega star, imagine you had a documentary crew filming the whole thing. How would you wouldn't be slacking off. You'd be like, all right, so now I've got to go do this, and now I've got to do that, because you want it to look like you're trying, you know.
Dude, on that, there is a guy who I've seen recently on Amazon Prime, James Altucher. Right, look him up, James Altucher. He has got a show on Netflix, on Amazon Prime, called Choose Yourself, right? And it's exactly that. He is a investor, writer, you know, multimillionaire 3 times over, but he's got a really interesting story because he's made loads of money and lost it quite a few times. And he is probably the most realistic, I suppose, philosophical mentor, if you want to call him that, to the wider population I've ever heard of, because he doesn't just talk about like the 1% of people who are like, yeah, I've got billions, and in order to make more billions, you just got to invest billions. It's like, who does that? No, he talks about really simple ideas. And one of them, which I've just started myself, right, is basically you get a notepad, okay? And every single day you wake up, just like you were talking at the beginning about exercise is super important for your body, right? You know, it's also important to just have some sort of like spirituality or some sort of like mindfulness or something, whether it be meditation or going for a walk, whatever works for you. That's to do, you know, your soul. And then he talks about mental strength, right? Now, your brain is a muscle. And if you don't train your brain on a regular basis, you feel dumb. I mean, I've done it before. I've had weekends where I've just done like nothing for 3 days. And then on Monday, I'm a bit like, well, I don't know what's going on, right? You know, your brain doesn't.
I was weeks at a time during lockdown. I was doing nothing, and I was just like a zombie most of the time. You know,
exactly. So he says he's got this really good tip that is basically get a notepad. And actually, I ordered a bunch the other day. Where's my notepad? Here we go. So you just order a bunch of notepads that are literally like really small. I got these on Amazon, right? And they were £2 for 6. And what you do is every morning you write down 10 things about something. So like 10 ideas about something. So it might be 10 ways in which I can make money this week, or 10 ideas for a book I want to write, or 10 meals I can make this week, or 10 things that I can buy my other half for Christmas, or whatever it might be. And what it does is it forces you to start really thinking. Now, the first 5 are usually quite easy, 6 and 7, you think about harder, but then you get to 8, 9, and 10, and you really have to dig deep into your brain about like, it's silly ideas, and they don't matter if they're right or wrong. The process of actually writing them down exercises your brain, and you come up with 10 ideas a day, right? Now, his philosophy is that if you come up with 10 ideas a day, that's 70 ideas a week, and you know, so on and so on and so on. By the end of the year, you've got like literally thousands of ideas that could be something quite cool. And every so often he goes through and he has idea sex with his ideas. So he'll
Right.
put an idea from one day in bed with another idea from another day and put them together and see what happens. And sometimes some of the best ideas are born out of that. And the example he gives in the show, which I think is so good, is Tyra Banks, right? Supermodel of America. She did 20 odd years being supermodel and was around at the time when American Idol had just started. And she decided, she was like, well, why don't I take my amazing idea of modeling and the amazing idea of American Idol and put them together and create a show, right? And went to a bunch of producers and a bunch of TV networks, and they all said, what a stupid idea. She then said, sod it, I'm not going to get battened down by you. I'm going to go out and produce it myself. And she went out and produced America's Next Top Model, which now has been going for 23 seasons and is probably one of the most popular shows in the States. You know, so great example of somebody who just thought, no, I've got an idea and I've put it in touch with another good idea. They had idea sex, and out came a much better version of what was already out there.
Dude, that's like the creativity is like, what do they say? Like you can't really create anything brand new. You just have different ideas. You just put different ideas of different people that you've learned from into one idea. And that, dude, that translates through everything. It's like, I don't know if you know the music producer Diplo, but he has several different aliases that he goes by. Like you've heard of like Jack U, and he's got one called LSD with Labyrinth and Sia. So it's Labyrinth, Sia, Diplo, and each one he uses different styles of music, and he collaborates that with dance music. So each of his different aliases. So for example, I'm trying to think. I'm blanking right now. I think it's Jack U. They use like the dubstep, like traditional dubstep, and then they merge that with like traditional house music, so that becomes like, you know, dubstep house. And what's the one that's we all need somebody to lean on, you know that song? It's like it's Major Lazer.
There you go.
So he uses like Caribbean drums on a dance track. And exactly what you're saying, he's just like coming up with something new by merging two overpopulated existing things together and making like this mad thing. And so from that, there's an artist called Kashmir, which is spelled Kashmir with a K and then without the vowels. So it's like Kashmir. But he saw what Diplo was doing and he said, well, how can I do something like that without copying him? So he was like, well, I'm Indian, so I'm going to use all Indian sounds and put that together with dance music with Diplo's influence. And now you've got this artist called Kashmir who's now doing something because he was inspired by someone else who was putting other things together. And it's, you know, it's like fast food. You can look at McDonald's. They didn't invent the burger, but they invented fast, efficient service and put the burger with it. And
yeah,
you're totally right, man. It's a great point.
And that's it. And it comes down to, you know, we can't reinvent the wheel. We're not living in the 18th century anymore with the Industrial Revolution and you're inventing like train tracks and fucking like steel girders and houses and shit. No, like we're past that. We're in the tech age. And unless you know how to code and you can create some app out of nowhere, then, you know, essentially what you got to do is just take what already works, work out what they're not doing and start doing it. You know, so if you've got a passion for, like, I'm trying to think of an example. I saw recently actually on Instagram, there was a company that's trying to rival Airbnb. Okay. And what they're basically saying is Airbnb are great because they've got shitloads of places all over the world and it's super easy, but the process in which to book something is actually quite hard for the person who owns the property. So let's say, you know, you have an Airbnb room. I wanted to book your place. It's easy from my side, but apparently it's hard from your side. And so what they've discovered is like, actually, we're going to create a platform that's not just easy for the customer, but also easy for the seller as well. And they've started a brand off the back of that, you know. And the thing is, in this world, we have to be niche. You know, we have to have a niche in order to be able to, you know, survive. And if you start with a tiny niche, you can always grow out of that. It's harder to be broad and then niche down. You know, because I think when you're broad, brother, everybody's doing the same thing. It's like if you said, hey, I'm an actor, you're like broad, right? But if you say, hey, I'm a policeman actor on a show in England on Channel 4 that does 5 episodes a week, people will be like, oh, sweet, that's a super niche person I want to like look into, you know? So I think if anybody's listening that wants to kind of start doing something with their life that that's, you know, trying something new, adding some strings to their bow, you know, having a passion project, look at what you are interested in and look at what you can do in order to be able to help other people be interested in that, right? You know, there's a massive study that's been done over the last couple of months that's like online learning has done like the same trajectory that Zoom's done in the last like 6 months. You know, the amount of people spending money on online learning is just, it's insane how much it's gone up. So if you know how to make it, like bake a really good cookie, or you know how to code, or you know how to prune some awesome bushes, like get online and start showing everyone how to do that. Like create a course and just put it online. There are so many websites out there. You can do it for like literally 30 quid. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, so true. And as you're saying that, I'm just coming up with like more and more examples of what you mean. And yeah, you've got everything so spot on. Like Amazon started as a bookstore that was online.
Niche.
Like you can't niche. So you can't start off saying, I think this day and age, a lot of young people say, I want to be the next Amazon. I want to be the next Harry Styles. I want to be the next One Direction. I want to be, and then they do exactly what those people did or are doing to try and emulate it. But you're completely right. You have to come up with something new that no one's done by using all the ideas that everyone's already done, but like put them together in an individual or in a unique way, and start with that and understand that you're not going to take over the world in a weekend. You know what I mean?
That's it. It comes actually nicely back to what you were saying before about the moment in which you realized that being an actor and going to auditions and being nervous, and that moment when you were like, actually, I'm just going to do it for me, is that you are the only person on this planet who can do what you do, right? You're the only Callum Kerr that can act in the way that you act and has had the background and the experience and the training you've had. I'm the only Jack Revell that can do what I'm doing. You know, everyone that's listening, you're the only person that can do what you can do. So therefore you're unique in that way. And if anything, you are your own competition. And that in itself is super exciting, because if you are your own competition, then you know you can wake up every day and just continuously be 1% better. That's all you got to do. You've just got yourself to worry about. Even if you're stuck in a room during lockdown at this worst time, you've got yourself to worry about. Just do 1% better each day than you were yesterday, and you will become a better person. It's I don't know if it's science, but it's fact.
What are your thoughts on competition with others in terms of where you are in life, or where you are, or like, you know, people that you might be up against, or like what are your thoughts on that? Because obviously it's quite a tricky one, because I think a lot of people become successful because they have, like, you know, you wouldn't have a Messi, or Messi wouldn't be as good if you didn't compare him to Ronaldo, and vice versa. And you know, they never play in the same team, and they most especially now never play against each other. But do you think it's good to have that? I know you're saying like you can only be better than yourself, but do you think it's good to have that little bit of competition against, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think, look, benchmarking yourself against, you know, because you've obviously got to see the process. So I think that having a mentor, having somebody to look towards, having someone to look up to is a really good place to start, because it shows that you can get to that stage. So it's not like a stab in the dark of like, oh, if I do this for long enough, I'll get to that stage. You've seen that there is a potential chance of you getting there, and it helps with the belief side of things as well. Like if you can see somebody doing what you ultimately want to do going forward, you know, then it shows that it's possible. Okay. And then all it comes down to is figuring out, and actually in a way, having competition is good, because you can almost just basically copy what they've done in a certain way. Like if you talk about acting, let's say, you know, Leonardo DiCaprio in his spare time when he was first starting out actually just spent 5 hours every day practicing his lines. Then you know that if I do 5 hours of deliberate practice every day practicing my lines, you will get to the point where you're getting much better every day, and therefore then those auditions, when they come, you'll nail. You know, it's like anything you do, so long as you deliberate practice on a regular basis, and you continuously upping your person you were the day before, like the opportunity will come. And then that's what we were saying before, when the opportunity and the skills meet, you get luck, and that's when your life starts to really take trajectory. Totally,
man. And I think with acting, I'm only saying this because obviously I know that side of the world. I think that actors do not practice enough overall, and then they can complain about lack of opportunity or lack of not getting the results that they wanted or anything. But like, and I did it when I first started out. I wouldn't practice my lines for an audition until I had 6 different ways of doing it. I would practice them until I kind of knew them, and then I'd go in and try and get a part. And I'm like, I'm not training. I'm not practicing the set piece enough to so
doing the bare minimum.
Doing the bare minimum, exactly. And I think that a lot of, because creatives are typically creative and messy and their heads all over the place, which benefits them in some places. It can be hard for them to sit down and do that. What did you call it? Like something practice.
Deliberate practice.
Deliberate practice. Yeah. And I think it's so important. Sit the fuck down and do it over and over until that's what I say to myself. I go, oh, maybe I should eat first. Oh, maybe I should just clean the kitchen. And suddenly I'm doing house chores instead of doing what I'm meant to be bloody doing. And I'm like, sorry, I don't mean to be vulgar on your show, but it's the easiest way to explain how serious it is. Sit the fuck down and do the fucking work.
Yeah, man. It's I'm sure people have heard of Brian Tracy. He's kind of like one of the godfathers of kind of the self-development space. And I think he even trains like Tony Robbins, that kind of era. Like, anyway, he wrote a book called Eat That Frog. And basically the story of that book is, the things you don't want to do in life are usually the things that you need to do the most, and the frog that's sitting in your drawer or in your cupboard or whatever analogy you want to come up with, the longer you leave it, the bigger and fat and smellier and slimier it gets, right? So if you just want to get something done, just eat that frog, just eat it, get it out of the way, swallow it, and then it's done. And it's so true. Procrastination's a fucker because it will the longer you leave it, the worse it gets. And I've not met one person to date that has said that they didn't, if they procrastinated over something, as soon as they did it, they didn't feel better. Like to this day, everyone feels better when they do the thing they know they should be doing, but haven't yet done. So just do it. Just do one thing each day that moves you closer towards what you want to achieve. And you will be in a much better mind frame, much better headset, mindset, and be able to move forward.
Totally. And I think the big thing about not getting stuff that, what is it called? I'm sorry, mate. I'm losing my brain now. Procrastination. It never goes away, ever. I don't think. I think it's just people just get more disciplined. I don't think procrastination will ever leave, and you might as well get used to the fact that it's a part of life, and you just need to get better at self-discipline. And I think one of the coolest ways that I've heard it put was Mike Tyson said. And again, I'm not going to be exact on this quote, but discipline is doing something that you hate doing, but doing it like you love it.
That's it.
And it's like, he didn't like doing 3 million sit-ups a day every morning to be the pro boxer, but he did it like he fucking loved that shit. And he was just like, I'm going to do it every morning like I love it, even though inside he was going, oh, I don't want to do sit-ups again. Maybe I can just have breakfast first. And maybe because it's Sunday, I can go on a walk. And he was like, nah, I'm going to, and that level of self-discipline is obviously, when you talk about world champions and stuff, they're at levels that a lot of people can't even comprehend. But if, like you said, if he can do it and you want to get to that level, then someone's doing it. So why not you?
Well, that's it. It comes down to success leaves clues. You look at anybody who's succeeded in anything, sports, business, politics, whatever, they have done it because they've been above the rest. They've done what most people wouldn't do. And they've become the best in their game. They've become the key person of their industry. They've become the person that will do the hard work, and it's paid off. And the thing is, people don't see behind, the screens. You look at J.K. Rowling. She wrote probably the most successful series of books ever written, but yet she was coming out of a divorce. Wrote it in Edinburgh. Actually, didn't she? She sat in a cafe in Edinburgh at probably having 2 or 3 coffees a day, just writing this thing in a busy cafe. Like, that's not really that exciting or glamorous, but now she's a billionaire, so I think people, focus on the end game rather than the process. And I think you've got to start something in order to have that process to then have the end game. So yeah, man, it's a process you're in. But I feel that, you have been on, in the time I've known you, the process and the journey you've been on is just awesome. And I love chatting to you and catching up with you and at these times, because it just shows what you can do in times when you are, even if you're thrown in the deep end with like restrictions coming out, coming out left, right and center, and, things that are not going well for you and whatever, you can still do well in your career and still focus on things and still upskill and do that sort of stuff. So man, it's been awesome catching up with you. And it's been really, really good, catching and seeing what's been up to. And thank you so much for your time today. It's been amazing.
Mate, yeah, thanks so much. Very kind of you to say all those things. And I think back at you, I think that it's very brave of you to take such a hard career path and then just follow it in the way that you have. And see, from talking to you when you were kind of thinking about starting off doing a life coaching course, to now you're like, you're like a live encyclopedia of like life coaching information that you can just like, if I ever needed to, I could just call you up and be like, oh, there's, you've done your research and you've studied it like you want to do it forever. And I think it's starting to show, and I'm proud of you, man. And
thanks, man.
I hope the podcast just keeps blowing up to the point that next time I'm on, there's going to be 8 million listeners, but if not, we'll get.
You heard it here first, guys. You heard it here first. That's how's that for future planning? There you go.
Yeah,
look, Callum,
exactly.
Where can people find you if they wanted to touch base with you a bit more, find out a bit more about what's going on in your life? Where can they find you?
The old classics. I'm on Instagram and Twitter at Callum Kerr, or Callum_Kerr_1, because Callum Kerr was taken and so was Callum Kerr 1. So we had to improvise there. So remember those underscores. Don't be following those other Callum Kerrs. And obviously on Hollyoaks is on every night at 6:30 on Channel 4, at 7 p.m. on E4. I'm not on every night, but you might catch a glimpse every now and again, every few episodes. And that's about it, to be honest.
Love it, man. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on, my friend. And look, I look forward to catching up with you again. We'll definitely be doing this again in the future. I'm sure the listeners will be requesting you back. So, man, always a pleasure, and I'll speak to you soon.
Nice one, man. And the last thing I want to say is you're one of those friends that when I speak to, I always feel like motivated to hop off and get shit done. And I think it's really cool. So hopefully if people get the same thing from just listening, then you've got a good product, mate. So thanks, man. Congrats, and keep crushing it, brother.
Here we go. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. I'll speak to you soon. Big love.
Take it easy, man.